What's up, everyone? So as you guys know, I mean, if you've seen my last couple of videos I've done of the iPhone XR, you might know that my stance on it might be a little weird because I'm comparing it to a lot of bigger phones, phones like the 8 Plus and the iPhone X. But the next iteration down in the comparison line is actually the iPhone 8. And my stance between these two phones is actually completely 100% the opposite of what I think between the iPhone 8 Plus and the iPhone X. Now, I personally do think if you have the iPhone 8, you probably should still keep it for a little bit longer just because it is a pretty decent phone. But let's say you don't have either of these phones and you don't know whether you want to save the money and get an iPhone 8 or whether you want to go and take the bezel-less approach and go for the iPhone XR. Now, the iPhone XR isn't completely 100% bezel-less, almost something like the XS, XS Max, and the iPhone X, but it's pretty close, and in my opinion, it does look better than the iPhone 8. Now, starting off, I will say one thing, and this might shock you. I personally think that the iPhone 8 feels more premium in the hand. And you might be like, wait, how does that even make any sense? That doesn't make... Well, the reason being is because I think what Apple did here was they used the chastity or the bezel, or the border around the phone. It feels something like the iPhone 6 and 6S Plus. It feels like the aluminum, and it doesn't feel as premium as the iPhone 8 does. Now, with that being said, the iPhone XR is bigger, and it kind of has that illusion of being more premium, which it kind of is. I mean, they share a lot of the same specs, glass on the front, glass on the back, wireless charging, all that stuff, single cameras and everything, but I think just the border around the phone and the chastity around it definitely feels more premium on the iPhone 8 than the iPhone XR. So that's really one weird thing, because when I was holding both, I'm like, it was kind of weird because I felt like I was holding like an iPhone 6S Plus or even an iPhone 6S, and between the 6S and it, they feel quite a bit different. In terms of release dates, these were just a year apart. Literally, the iPhone 8 was released last year, which feels like yesterday, honestly. Now, one cool thing between these two is that they both have IP67 dust and water resistance, so you can dump them for up to 1 meter of water for 30 minutes. So whether you get a little splash on it or whether you do take it full for that 1 meter, you will be good. Don't even worry about it. You never hope to use something like that. It's more like a precautionary, like in the back of your head, like, oh, okay, I'm set. If I get some water on it, like, it's no big deal. Now, going back to the screens up front, on the iPhone 8, we had a 4.7 inch screen and it was clocked at 750 by 1334, so a little bit above HD. Whereas on the iPhone XR, we have a 6.1 inch screen, and that's actually 828 by 1792. So technically speaking, the iPhone XR does have a higher resolution screen, but the weird thing is it still has the same pixels per inch, which is kind of funny. So technically speaking, yes, the iPhone XR screen should be better because it's high resolution, but I feel like the iPhone 8 does have an illusion of like being better because it's smaller, and I feel like the pixels are more compact and not as spread out. So, I mean, I'll say one screen definitely isn't like 100% better like on, let's say, an iPhone XR versus an iPhone XS or something like that, but the screens are definitely noticeably similar, but maybe the iPhone XR might have the advantage just because it does have like a bezel-less-esque display, so it kind of looks like it's better, but maybe not. But yeah, between these screens, you can't really tell which one's better or not. Now, one thing I will say is that the size is a pretty big difference between the two. Even though the iPhone XR is bezel-less, I mean, the iPhone XR is bigger than the iPhone X, and it's in between the size of, let's say, like an iPhone 8 and an 8 Plus, so it fits right in between there. It's more so, I would say, if I had to choose one, it's more so on the iPhone 8 Plus side than the iPhone 8. The iPhone X is more so on the 8 side, I would say, but if you're scared about the size or something like that, I wouldn't really say don't freak out about it too much, but really I would try to figure out which size you like. Definitely the XR is bigger than the 8, so just kind of keep that in mind. They both have True Tone display. Now, another huge advantage of the iPhone 8 is that it does have Force Touch, so if you want to peek and pop, if you want to reply to iMessage through notification drawers or Force Touch onto apps to get more information, you have that option with the iPhone 8, where you do not have that on the iPhone XR, which was a huge criticism of it. I criticized it a lot before it even came out, and I still think it's kind of annoying. You expect to get a lot out of a phone, and the iPhone XR on release was actually more expensive than the iPhone 8. So if they were able to put Force Touch on the iPhone 8 display, why couldn't they do it on the iPhone XR? It doesn't really make much sense there. Now, in terms of software, this is where it might change up a little bit. The iPhone XR should technically on paper last longer in terms of software than the iPhone 8. And I personally do think that the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus are not going to get, let's say, like an extra year of support, something like what the 5S did, because I feel like the iPhone X is going to last longer. And the iPhone X was released when iOS 11.1 was released, I believe. So it was already released past iOS 11. So I feel like it's going to get the same software versions as the iPhone XR. But because the iPhone 8 was released exactly when iOS 11 was released, well, not exactly, but it was released with iOS 11, not any like 0.01, 0.1 or something like that, I kind of have the feeling that the iPhone 8 is not going to last as long in terms of software as the iPhone XR, which isn't a horrible thing either, because both these phones were still super early into the software cycle. So these phones, you won't even have to worry about software for many, many years now. So in terms of that, I wouldn't even freak out about it. But looking forward, that is kind of something I need to point out. But it doesn't really affect the value of these phones yet, just because we haven't really like experienced anything dramatic with these versions of iOS, especially with iOS 12. I mean, there's been some problems here and there, but don't even worry about software updates yet. Now, in terms of the hardware, more so the specs inside, they're a little different. They definitely do have their differences, but they also have some similarities as well. The iPhone 8 had the Apple A11 Bionic chip, a hexa-core CPU, and 2GB of RAM, where the iPhone XR has the new Apple A12 Bionic chip. It also has a hexa-core processor, but this time they added 3GB of RAM, so there's an extra gigabyte of RAM on the iPhone XR. I know I say gigabyte weird, sue me. And I'll definitely say that I just ran the speed comparison. I'll show you guys in a second. The extra gigabyte of RAM does kind of help it out a little bit. What's interesting is because the resolution is almost the same, it's a little bit higher on the XR, but because the PPI is the same, we don't really have the excuse of, oh, because the screen is high resolution, it has more pixels to push, this and that. In this case, it really doesn't. So with that being said, let's go ahead and see how these phones compare in terms of performance in the speed comparison. So as usual, all apps are both the same on the phone. I have some extra ones on the iPhone 8, but who cares, honestly. Now I'm going to load up the regular apps and then some higher intensive apps after, just like third-party apps and stuff. But the funny thing is I try to run a benchmark on the iPhone XR, and for some reason, every time I ran it, it would not actually go and run, which was so annoying. So I don't even have a score on here. It would go up to like 98% and then would like cancel. So that's super annoying, but it's whatever. So let's go ahead and load up the camera. All apps are clear in the background, except for that one, and except for that one. So let's go ahead and do it. Camera, 3, 2, 1. And I'm going to assume for most of these apps, it's going to be pretty much the same speed as you saw the iPhone XR open that pretty fast. Let's do calendar, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, these are going to be pretty much the same. Maybe one will be faster than the other. Every once in a while, the iPhone XR is faster there. But most of all, these apps usually aren't even that big. So the XR was a little bit faster there. News, 3, 2, 1. The iPhone XR was way faster there. I don't even know what happened there. Let's do iTunes Store, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Yeah, this one wasn't even loading that well on the other one, so I don't know what happened. On the other test I did, let's do App Store, 3, 2, 1. It looks like the iPhone 8 was faster there, and this one is just always glitching up for some reason. So weird. Let's do iBooks, 3, 2, 1. The iPhone 8 is so slippery. I don't even know which one was opening up faster there. Let's go ahead and load up the second page, which is the third page here. Let's go ahead and do TikTok, the memeiest thing ever. 3, 2, 1, whatever. And the XR was faster there. I'm going to hop out so I don't get a copyright strike. TikTok is just, let's do Netflix, 3, 2, 1. And I might actually have to bleep out what I just said. The iPhone 8 was faster there. That was weird. Let's do Quizlet, 3, 2, 1. The XR was faster, as expected. Let's do Dropbox, 3, 2, 1. The XR was faster again. Let's do Slices. I'll be on this page. 3, 2, 1. I just hit the camera, by the way, my bad. I always do that too. I think the XR is going to be faster here by quite a bit. As you see, it's like noticeably faster, like way too fast. And that's even a simple game. It's not even that crazy of a game. Let's do Bofa. Bofa. And the XR is faster there as well, as expected. Let's do Reddit, 3, 2, 1. And these are apps that I figured you guys would use on your phones, like Reddit, Bank of America, or whatever. I would still assume the XR was faster there. Let's do this game. I don't even know what it's called. 3, 2, 1. Yep, faster on the iPhone XR. Again, as expected, these are really good games. They're really like not that intensive stuff. So it's kind of weird to see how it's even more noticeable on like even less intensive games, if that makes any sense. As you can see, it's much faster on the iPhone XR here. Snakes versus Blocks, 3, 2, 1. As you can see, faster on the iPhone XR again, as expected. Now let's do Asphalt 9, which is a pretty intensive game. Now I will have to run it on the iPhone 8 first because I already ran it on here, so I have to kind of get them up to the same speed. So I'll just have to take an extra second to do that. Alright, so I'm logged into this game, so I'm going to hop out of this. Alright, so now we're on the same level playing field. Let's go do Asphalt 9, 3, 2, 1. And I'm expecting again the iPhone XR should be faster, just because, like I said, it has extra gigabyte of RAM. It has not that, the same, I guess the screen's whatever. And surprisingly, I don't know which one went in first, so I'm not even going to say it because I'm going to get beat up in the comment section, but one of them was faster, and I want to say it was the iPhone 8, but I could be wrong. So, as you can see, man, the iPhone XR is going to be faster as expected. It has higher specs than the iPhone 8. It's definitely, much better looking, I would say, than the iPhone 8. The screen, I would say, there's not really too much difference between the screen. The screen size is humongously different, but the screen resolution, they look the same sharpness, I would say. Maybe a little bit sharper on the iPhone 8 just because it's kind of shrunk in the pixels a little bit, but that was pretty much it for the speed test. I wish I had a multi-core score that I could show you guys, but as I said, that benchmarking app was not working. But that is pretty much it for the speed comparison, so I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the video. How do you guys feel after that speed comparison? Do you guys feel good? I hope so. If you don't, get some water, take a break. This has been a pretty long video. It's going to be even longer though, because this next section is the camera. Now, I would say 100%, this is my opinion. You guys can have your own opinion too. I think the camera sensors on both these phones are pretty similar, okay? They're both single sensors. Now, technically speaking, the iPhone XR does have the advantage because you do have portrait mode, where you don't have that on the iPhone 8, which just kind of goes to show, like, they could have put portrait mode on the iPhone 8 too, but they didn't, so that's kind of dumb. But I will definitely say that the iPhone XR is better just because of that alone. Even if they were the same in terms of just the way they look and the photos and everything, I'll definitely say that XR has the advantage here. But what's interesting is that the iPhone 8 isn't even, like, I can't really see which one is better outside of just the features that the camera bring. What's interesting is they also shoot the same video resolutions, 4K at up to 60 frames per second and 1080p at up to 240 frames per second. So that is really, really cool, and I do like that. I do appreciate as many video resolutions and frame speeds that we can get. But I'll definitely say in terms of photo quality, you'll find that they're almost the same. Like I said, the XR does have portrait mode and some portrait lightings, but there isn't one characteristic that just wows me that's like, wow, this camera is so much better than what we had before. They're both very good sensors. I would say, dude, I'll even say, like, if the iPhone XR was 100%, because I know in some ways it is better, the iPhone 8 would probably be like a 92%. Like, it's not that much better at all. When you factor in the software enhancements and everything, I'll definitely say that they're fairly close, but the XR is better. And also factoring in the front camera as well. They're both 7 megapixels, but the XR has the advantage of being able to shoot 1080p at up to 60 frames per second on the front camera, which is pretty cool. We haven't seen that on an iPhone yet, up until the XS and XS Max. Whereas on the iPhone 8, we have 1080p at up to 30 frames per second. It's not really that big of a deal for a lot of people, but it could be a big deal to you. So just kind of keep that in mind. And that's actually one huge advantage of getting a XR over an iPhone 8 is just that extra camera functionality. Now, another humongous advantage with the iPhone XR over the iPhone 8 would definitely be the battery life, and more so the battery size too. You know, the iPhone 8 had not a small, completely small, but definitely like not a huge 1,821 milliamp battery, which was okay. You know, it wasn't like the greatest thing ever even at the time. But the iPhone XR came with a 2,942 milliamp battery, which is very, very large. It's over 1,000 milliamp hours more than the iPhone 8, and with that, dude, the battery life is going to be very, very good, much, much better than the iPhone 8. So I will say, dude, let's say you use your iPhone 8, right? And you ended the day with like 10% or 20%. Let's just say 20%. You will end the day with like 40 to 50% on the iPhone XR if you use the same usage. Now, that will be fluctuating depending on a lot of factors, but I will say that you will probably get like 10 to 20%, maybe even 30% better battery life on an iPhone XR than an iPhone 8 because of that battery size increase, because of the new optimized chip, and because you don't have things like Force Touch and things like that. I mean, small little things like that do add up overall. So I'll definitely say that in terms of battery life alone, this is a huge update and increase, which is really cool. And I believe the iPhone XR has a bigger battery size than all of the Plus variant of iPhones. I know it has a smaller one than the XS Max. I believe this has the second largest battery in all of the iPhones, which is really cool. Now, some other notable things to note, a huge thing, obviously you can tell from the front, the iPhone XR has Face ID, where the iPhone 8 does not. It has Touch ID, and I honestly think Touch ID is perfectly fine. I like it a lot. I like it more than Face ID, but, you know, I have an iPhone 10, so I have to get used to it, and the iPhone XR is, you know, Face ID is kind of the future, so you're kind of future-proofing yourself a little bit, but not really. Maybe because I think Touch ID might be coming back. That's just a little rumor. Don't spread it around. But another thing, I mean, I would definitely say the iPhone XR looks better. You have a lot more color options, but I feel like the iPhone 8 feels better. So there is kind of a dilemma there, but it's really not that big of a deal, honestly, if it just depends on you. Now, what I'll say is that if you have to choose one, I'll ask you right now, how long do you plan on keeping a phone? If you plan on getting a new phone in like 2 years and you don't already have a preference, you don't know what size you want, this and that, I'll say, man, like, go to the Apple store and try them, you know, try the sizes. That's really the biggest difference here, I would say. There's a little bit of a speed increase here and there, but you're really not going to notice it too much, I would say, for my usage. I'll say that for sure the iPhone XR is the better phone overall, 100%. If you're at the Apple store and you're like, let's just say you have an unlimited amount of money to spend, you can spend as much money as you want to, 150% get the iPhone XR. But if you had unlimited money, I don't know why you would not just go get a iPhone XS or XS Max, which is even better and feels way more premium, has way more features, because I'm not the number one fan of the iPhone XR, if I'm being honest. You know, it lacks a lot of features that even the iPhone 8 has, like Force Touch and similar things like that. So, I mean, I'll definitely say the choice is yours. You can't really go wrong with both these options. Now, if you're in a situation where you have an iPhone 8 and you don't know whether you want to get the iPhone XR or not, I'll give you two choices. I'll say, dude, either keep your phone, like, you are not missing much. I have an iPhone 8 and I have an iPhone XR, and if I had to keep an iPhone 8 for a main phone, I would honestly be happy with it. I wouldn't care less. The battery life is a huge increase with the iPhone XR. But what I'll say is, dude, if you want to go the certified refurbished route or the used route, get an iPhone iPhone 10, dude. Get a used iPhone 10. Those things cost less than an iPhone 10R, and they're way more similar to an iPhone 10s than an iPhone 10R. So you're getting a lot of features, you're getting a lot of benefits of the iPhone 10s without having to pay the premium, and even getting a phone less than an iPhone 10R. I mean, that's kind of my take on it. I'll definitely say if you have an upgrade or something, the iPhone 10R is a very good option, and like honestly, you can't really go wrong. But that is my opinion. If you guys have any questions or anything like that, leave it down in the comment section below. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. Whether you agree with me or disagree with me, I'd love to hear it, dude. Let's just start a discussion, all right? I'll leave some links in the description below for an iPhone 10 for certified refurbished. I'll try to leave a link for an iPhone 10R if I can find one. But if I can't, dude, just Apple's website, they have them there. But hit that like button, that'll mean so much. But definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys could hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel. I do a lot of iOS comparisons on that channel. You've seen me already did like iPhone comparisons, but I go a little bit more in depth, as soon as there's another iOS version or anything like that, I always compare different iPhones to different iOS versions. So everything I don't do on my main channel, I'll do it on second channel. So definitely check that out. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.